Before we start this exciting episode, I want to request you to subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends.
ICCS has been doing excellent work. I know Shri Yashwant Pathak, one of the early pioneers, good friend of mine, and also Amarji Lochan, who is involved in Delhi, also a dear friend. This is my first visit to Nagpur. I'm delighted to be here and be hosted by these wonderful people. So in the previous panel, there were excellent speakers from different faiths, making some remarkable points. I think I don't want to restate that because what they said is quite compelling. I'll just share a few of my own experiences. Sometime in the mid-late 1990s, I got a request from Cornell University to give them a grant. Our foundation gives grants. So to give them a grant for a big world conference which was going to be held in the year 2000 with all the leaders of big religions, the top highest person they could find for each religion at Cornell University to declare world peace, that they will all be now having peace. And one of the things that they wanted to do was to make a list of all those who are causing religious violence. And they said that we will make the people who are creating religious violence accountable. So there will be a resolution passed saying these things are causing religious violence, we don't believe in this, and then we declare peace, but these people causing religious violence. I told them that if one religion says that the violence is coming from this other religion, and then this religion says the violence is coming from somewhere else, we should also look at all our religions. Rather than us being good people, we have gathered on the stage, all of us, some leaders will gather, and we will say we are all hugging each other, we are great, we are very peaceful, and those people, some people there are causing these problems. We should also look at ourselves. So the professor was very impressed. This lady she's a Westerner, but she's a Buddhist, and very much into peace, harmony, and so on. So she's very impressed. She said, "Okay, now tell me how you're going to do that." So I said, my suggestion is this: we still have a few years before the conference, because it was 96, 97 we were talking, and year 2000 is still 3 years away. It will be the biggest interfaith in the world ever. But before that, we have 2-3 years. So I want to first give a smaller grant. That big grant we'll give. But first we should give a smaller grant to do a project. We will have graduate students from different religions organized, and these people, there will be a Hindu, a Buddhist, Jain, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, all the major religions will be represented by students who are from that faith, and these will be students of religion, so they will be experts. And this group of students will look at the major text, the major religious book of each religion. They will highlight any sentence which is accusing or blaming or hating others. So anything about infidel, kafir, other, this one, that one, this one should go to hell, this one should be bad, this one, that one, whatever is derogatory, negative, accusing, blaming outside of people of that religion, we will highlight it. And they will do it together. And then we will make a list of all the statements. We will say, for this religion, verse number this says this. verse number this says this. And these are verses which are not peaceful. These are the verses in these religious texts which you can teach or you can remain silent, you can interpret, you can misinterpret, but these are statements that are creating violence. And then I said one idea would be that while we want to pass a resolution blaming all those who are creating problems, we should also pass a resolution saying that these statements in the attachment should not be taught because they create problems. Now the professor is very impressed. He said, this is innovative. Kya baat hai? Yeah, this is innovative. So they said, I would love to have this project. And then we are ready for that big conference. So I was also very happy. So from Cornell, driving back to my home 4 or 5 hours, I was thinking, we are going to make some important impact, So then I did not hear from her for a while. And I thought, which had to gadbad hai, kuch hai, pata nahi kya baat hai. 1 month later, I went to see her. I said, I have not heard from you. She said, I am in so much trouble because I sent this to all the religious heads. Except for 1 or 2 religions like Hinduism and 1 or 2. They are so angry at me for daring to point out what is problem in their text. Each one of them said, who are you? How dare you? Even point it out. Okay. I said, no, we didn't say that you have to delete it. Because they all said we're not allowed to change our text. I said we're not saying you should delete it. We are saying you make a resolution that you will not teach these things. They can sit there, but you will not teach them. You will stop teaching these things because they stir up problem. So she went back to them. She came back and said, they are so angry they don't want to do this conference. Because they say, who are you people tampering with our text, interpreting, telling this, telling that. So that conference never happened. Because when it's easy to get together, all of us on the stage, we love each other, we hug and all, everybody good. And the problem belongs to all those people somewhere who are not here. That is very easy to do. But when you point out that you are teaching every week on your seminar and your sermons, and some of the statements in your texts are talking about outsiders to your religion, outsiders. And when you talk about outsiders in an inferior way, and I'm talking about all the religions, not exempting any religion. When you are talking about outsiders in an inferior way, in a derogatory way, whether they are to be killed or whether they are to become slaves, whether they are to be given some infidel tax, whether they are to be denied something, whether they go to hell, whatever the details are is unimportant. The fact that you are referring to them in that way is going to create hostilities. And this, if you really want to create world peace and harmony among religions, you must go to the source of the problems, and the source of the problems is that there are certain teachings that have come down historically which are part of these texts. And these teachings keep stirring up trouble every so often. And the fact is, every time I have given this challenge, people have said, Hinduism may be aise hai. So I said, okay, I will get you Hindu acharyas and swamis of the top level who will agree. Okay, we will deactivate this verse if it is offending you. If some verse is offending other people, we'll deactivate it. But are you willing to do the same for your verse, for your text? Now this problem is a very serious problem. This led me to do further research. Certain religions have the ability to be flexible in interpreting, challenging the texts. In fact, our Gita is Arjun challenging Krishna all the time. That is how most of our texts are a guru and some disciple challenging the guru. That is how the debate or argument is. So we are encouraged to argue because even in the text they are arguing. It's not like, okay, you obey me, otherwise you go to hell. Though, who are you to challenge me? Not like that. But if there is a text where God has spoken and has given commandments and has said this is final, underline, and has said that nobody, you guys don't have a right to change it because I'm God after all. That, if that causes tension, that tension is not solvable. That tension is not solvable by us humans because we can't change what's written there. And so the nature of certain religions where something happens once in history, it will never happen again according to them. It has never happened in another place. It only happened in one place, never to be repeated, and it is final, and every word is exact. That kind of absolutism creates dogma. That kind of absolutism is closed-minded. So what we have, thankfully, is a separation between Shruti and Smriti. The Shruti is eternal, but the Smriti is changeable, adaptable. Each era, each context adapts the Smriti for its own purposes. Manusmriti says very clearly that the injunctions are in the particular context, and you have to develop your context and your interpretation. So we in the 21st century are asked, not allowed, but we are asked that we have to develop smritis for today, in accordance with the situation today. So not only are we allowed to question the text, debate the text, which our tradition does, argue about the text, argue whether this one is correct, not correct, whatnot and all that. We are allowed to do that, and there is no requirement, nothing that we go to hell or we be killed and all that. So not only we are allowed to do that, we are asked that you have to redo the interpretation of the Smritis for your own context. This, I think, is a very big opportunity for harmony, because we are not ever cornered in a tight spot where something is happening in the world and we can't deal with it because this is what my text says. Well, we can adapt it. We are allowed to do that. So the adaptability versus the dogma has to do with whether the history is one of a kind, final, closed, never to be done again, or whether this message keeps coming again and again and again in different forms. And so in your village, if you had a new enlightened being who's teaching, I have no reason to doubt it. I have a source, my parampara, teaching me something. But if somebody from a place in Africa or Latin America or China or wherever, or my neighborhood, comes and says, we have this other tradition. Our tradition is different. The same Supreme Being came in a certain form and told us certain things. We have our own rituals and we have our own holidays and festivals and whatnot, and we have our own text. I have no reason to say otherwise. I have no reason. My tradition says you respect. So the construct of Ishta Devata means my chosen deity. It means I have my chosen deity. So let's say Durga is my chosen deity. That means you have yours. It doesn't say the only chosen, the only one and only legitimate deity. It doesn't say Ishta Devata, doesn't say the one and only legitimate deity. It says my chosen deity, you have your chosen deity. I have my Ishta Devata, you have your Ishta Devata. So if you come from another faith and you have deity X and I have deity Y, as far as I am concerned, there is no problem. If that's your Ishta Devata, this is my Ishta Devata. The problem will come if the other fellow who has deity X says that is the only possible deity and my deity Y is invalid and whatever. If they have a claim of exclusivity, that creates violence. So we have to, if we are politically correct, I must say in the last 25 years, I have been to maybe 200 interfaith meetings, maybe 400, something like that. All the time they are going on. So many people gathering and declaring peace, but there is no peace. So there is something we are just talking nicely. We are not willing to touch the real source of the problem. And that is a matter of not sort of pointing at others, but looking at ourselves and saying, is there something in our text that we ought to be worried about? Is there something that we have to reinterpret, reject certain things? And this authority that some religions, they've taken this authority, very centralized, authoritarian, that people aren't allowed to reinterpret and change and whatnot, is a very kind of a control system, and that causes tension, that causes violence. I believe in the idea of mutual respect, not tolerance, and I differentiate it. Tolerance is when you tolerate somebody, it's almost like you looking down at them but saying, I'll tolerate you. It's like, sir, I tolerate you sitting on the stage near me. Now it is an insult. Imagine you go home and tell your spouse, I tolerate you in the house. Or you are sitting and having dinner with somebody and say, I'll tolerate you to sit and have dinner with me. Or in your office, you tell somebody, I tolerate you in the office. It is an insult to be tolerated. If somebody offers you tolerance, please say, what do you mean tolerance? Is there something wrong with me that you are tolerating me? Why can't we have mutual respect and mutual acceptance and mutual celebration rather than tolerance? You see, the history of tolerance started in Europe. When the Holy Kingdom, the Roman Empire and the Vatican and all that, the exclusivity of the Catholics broke up because Protestants challenged it. So there was Catholics and there were Protestants. Then every kingdom had its own Protestant church. Like Church of England today, Church of Scotland, they're all separate churches, Protestant churches. So there was a period when in the beginning they all had they had laws saying that in my kingdom you have to be a member of this particular church. You cannot be in the Protestant denomination of the other kingdom, because then you are a traitor. If you belong to the other religion, you are a traitor, you should go into that country, you can't live here. That was the state. And then after a lot of wars between these neighboring countries in Europe, some kings decided to declare a treaty of tolerance, which means in my kingdom, if people of your religion come, we will not persecute them. And similarly, reciprocal, in your kingdom, if my people are there, you will not prosecute them. So tolerance just means we will not prosecute you. It doesn't mean respect. So I teach this idea of tolerance, of mutual respect versus tolerance. And in the year 2000, there was this UN summit. United Nations had a summit of world religions. Again, one of those declare world peace. Every so often, religious people love to come together and declare world peace. And then they go back and give the same lectures, same sermons from the same books, accusing the same outside people. And then in a few weeks, they again get together and declare more world peace. So this time it was United Nations. So the Hindu delegation was led by Swami Dayananda Saraswati, the late Swami Dayananda Saraswati. And we were very close. So he called me, he would call me a lot, I would talk to him a lot on many things. So he called me and said, what should be our position? So the draft resolution, which had been drafted by the Vatican, and other religions were asked to give comments. This was going to be the draft resolution passed. The draft resolution said we declare tolerance. All of us agreed to declare tolerance. So I said, Swamiji, don't accept tolerance. You should scratch it and put mutual respect. So we discussed it. So Swamiji said, absolutely, we should put mutual respect. So he told his people, we don't want the word tolerance, we want mutual respect. Vatican would not accept it. Vatican would not accept it. A few days before the conference ended, and it had become a very high-profile conference, CNN interviewing all the people there, New York Times writing articles. A few days before the conference ended, New York Times writes a front-page article, the conference may collapse, without mentioning names, because there is irreconcilable dispute on the language. They did not say what the dispute was. This was meant to put pressure on Swamiji, that if you don't cave in, the conference will collapse, there will be big media scandal that you've caused it. But Swamiji is very tough. He said, if you can't respect us, what is this nonsense? We are talking about peace in the 21st century and we are not even willing to respect. Now the reason they cannot offer respect is you can't then go and convert those people. If I respect you for your faith, then why do I have to convert you? What is wrong with you? There is nothing wrong with you. I am actually practicing my faith and you are practicing your faith. And you are not bothering me. I should respect you. But the problem they would have is they would have to shut down and dismantle the worldwide operation of evangelism and conversion. This is very big deal for them. So Swamiji's idea that we will just put in the word mutual respect and make them sign was a very big consequence. It was not just play on language, but very clever. They would not sign. So on the last day, when few hours were left, and they realized that this Hindu delegation is not going to cave in, they finally accepted and a resolution was passed with mutual respect. And then, the story doesn't end, because 2 months later, when this delegation went back to Vatican, more problems, because now they have signed mutual respect for these heathens, these pagans, these heathens, these people who are whatever, they've signed, idolaters, they've signed all this mutual respect with them. Now how are you going to go and create all this propaganda in all the villages everywhere saying, oh, these guys no good, yes, that, because you're supposed to respect, you put up a mutual respect resolution. So the Vatican issued they rescinded this agreement, this thing, and came up with a new doctrine which said that while we respect certain aspects of other religions, certain aspects, the final gateway to heaven can only come through us. मतलब आप लोग किंडरगार्टन में हो, कोई लोग सिक्स्थ क्लास में है, कोई 8th क्लास में है, लेकिन आपको जो फाइनल पीएचडी में जाना है वो तो हमारे विद्यालय में ही हो सकता है. आप लोग, you can prepare, but ultimately we are the ones who control the final gateway. And then a very famous Panikkar was of a mixed parentage. One parent was a Hindu, one was a Christian, and he was a very famous person in the Catholic Church, considered one of the most important and influential Christian theologians of the 20th century. He was a scholar of Vedas from a Christian point of view, but very respectful. And then finally he wrote a book called Christ is the Fulfillment of the Vedas, which means Vedas are valid. Christ comes to fulfill it, which means कि जो आपको सीख रहे हैं ठीक सीख रहे हैं, पर आगे जाना है तो क्राइस्ट पे आना है. आप बच्चों की क्लास में बैठे हैं, ठीक है, वी रिस्पेक्ट यू फॉर दैट, रिस्पेक्ट भी कर सकते हैं, बट इट इज नॉट अल्टीमेट. अल्टीमेट के लिए हमारे पास आना पड़ेगा. यू आर अ प्रिपरेशन, आप प्रिपेयर करें लोगों को, तो इसलिए ठीक है, आप यू कैन डू हिंदू रिचुअल्स, यू कैन डू ऑल काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स इन द चर्च. साड़ी में जाओ, बिंदी लगाओ, डांस करो, भगड़ा करो, कीर्तन करो, सब कुछ करो, रिचुअल वगैरह करो, दिवाली सेलिब्रेट करो, बिकॉज दैट इज द एलिमेंट्री स्टेज ऑफ रिलीजन, primitive stage, and now we are the more advanced stage. So these are very sophisticated games that go on in this interfaith business. Okay, so I think this business of peace among the faiths and so on is a very important thing to discuss, but we ought to discuss with honesty, with courage, put things on the table. So sometimes people have asked me, I am very active in the conversation, I'm very, I'm not worried because I am telling the truth, or I'm happy to be argued against. And so you can find flaws in my faith and I will accept them. We have flaws, we are not a perfect faith. We don't claim to be perfect, we don't claim some final way, we think, okay, this is the best we know so far, and we keep improving. Now I'm often asked, who are you to evaluate another faith? It's a very good question. Who are you? So I tell them, if your faith is mentioning infidels, then you're talking about it. You're talking about it. And in any court, if you are being accused or somebody is blaming you for something, you have a right to speak. They cannot pass judgment on you in absentia. They cannot say that we're talking about you, there's something wrong about you, but you can't speak. You have the right to speak. So any faith, any sentence, any verse which talks about infidels, heathens, pagans, those kind of things, then people like me have a legitimate right to talk back. And that is what I do. So I think this business is a very exciting business. The problem I feel, now I will tell you my feelings. I think the problem is not in the originators of these faiths. That's my sense. It's not the originator, wherever these faiths started. I think the problem is that the politics of expansion took over the religion. So for instance, in the case of Christianity, what we call Christianity starts in the 4th century. It not starts in the time of Jesus. It is Emperor Constantine, who is a Roman emperor. He appropriates Christianity as a state religion for expansion. Now everybody can be forced to become. So as the Roman armies go and they conquer and defeat people, they convert them. So it is not early Christianity which was expansionist. But it is the Romanized Christianity which becomes expansionist. So there is a difference between, I think, a spiritual core in a particular faith and the institutionalized, organized version of it, which some kings or some sheikhs or some rulers or emperors or whatever, when they take custody and it becomes their job and their mandate to spread it and to enforce it, that I think becomes the problem. And so I personally don't think that peace and harmony are possible as long as faiths are under the control of rulers, governments, states, people in that kind of an institutional system who controlling these kind of faiths and propagating them for their own purpose. And this other thing I want to close with is, I think peace, we think it means absence of war. But we have to also try to ask what exactly is peace. It's not just absence of war. The peace must start within the individual. The peace must start within the individual. If I am at peace, I am contented. I have my relationship with the Supreme. My mind, body, spirit are in harmony. And none of this depends on you. Whether you are doing the right thing, wrong thing, I couldn't care. I am at peace. If you have a society like that, then even externally, even in a physical sense, there is likelihood of peace. As long as people in themselves, as individuals, are not able to find peace, are very anxious, very upset, very whatever, and they project it on somebody else that it must be these people's problems. As long as that is the case, then I think it's very difficult, it's a big challenge, very big challenge to expect peace to come about. So my closing remark is that all of us should take a critical view of our own faith rather than passing around to others this, that. So basically, if there is a ceasefire on the evangelism front, means I am not going to badmouth your religion and try to steal your people, you don't do that to me, we can be in mutual respect. And I'm more worried about reforming my own faith, my own community, you should worry about yourself. And the inner individual is where this process starts. If we all do that, I think there will be no problem, no religion will be bad, it will be just differences with mutual respect for each other. Thank you.